You have some thoughts on world record. What's that about?
Someone's told you this is my pet subject. Yeah, I think we can learn from things like this. Let's start in the UK. The average yield of wheat, for example, in the UK is 7.8 tonnes. That was in 2021, and it was 7 tonnes the year before. And the long-term average for 5 years, I think, is about 8 tonnes. 8 tonnes per hectare. If we look at recommended list trials, these are the trials conducted by NIAB and others, where they look after the crops quite well, the different varieties. They characterise the traits of the different varieties, but also look at the yield potential by treating the crop in terms of fungicide, pesticide, herbicide, and to try and see how they perform comparatively in terms of yield. And if you look at the 5-year average for those trials, then where protection is optimal, then I think the yield is about 11 tonnes. So 8 tonnes UK average, 11 tonnes recommended list. Now let's move on to world records. And I've spoke to a couple of world record holders over the years. I think without going into detail, in 2017 it was 16.79 tonnes. It's just one that I remember. And I think the latest world record is in New Zealand, is about 17.5 tonnes. So the average UK, 8 tonnes, recommended trials, recommended list trials, 11, and then up to over 17. And the potential yield is difficult to work out, but from studies that are done under glass, the potential yield of wheat is probably in excess of 25 tonnes. So you can see that as we look after wheat more, if we express it that way, the yield can go up. The potential of wheat is far greater than the average. And if we assume that the average is a normal distribution, then obviously there are some leading farmers who are doing quite well in terms of yield, 10, 11 tonnes a hectare, and other farms who, for whatever reason, are not doing so well. And one thing we can do is if we can move that mean value up by only a few percent, but even 10, 20%, then we move the whole grain production. We increase the whole grain production rather than just trying to increase some of the poor farmers and some of the better farmers. Let's go for that mean. And what it comes down to is that if we have 2 plants in a field close to each other, say a foot apart in old money, 300 mil apart, you'd think that they would perform the same, and they don't. One might be in a nutrient-rich soil, one might be in a slightly shallower part with a stone next to it, one might have a bit of disease, the other one hasn't got it yet, if it's spread by rain splash, for example. So you have to look at the potential of each plant. And at the moment, we're looking at the potential of a field and trying to generalize across the field. But if we can get the resolution down to individual plants, treating individual plants, then that's when we can really move that average yield, because we can give each plant what it wants against its own potential. That's the ultimate in precision agriculture. In order to do that, we have to see each individual plant and see what is on each individual plant. What's constraining, disease, pests, disorders, trace element deficiencies. And we need a good vision system, because in wheat you've got overlapping leaves and different levels of canopy, and we don't have that. We don't have it. But that's where we should be aiming, is individual plant treatment based on a vision system that can look at individual leaves on a plant. And that's what we can do with AgriSynth, is to open that door to such vision systems. And by doing so, we can shift productivity away from the current mean values towards that theoretical yield. We know we can do it, but we have to take a different approach and get away from looking at a field down to an individual plant. It's an interesting subject.